and the others, some not, some yes, had also beards. And he had a trimmed beard.
Yes.
And as I said, he was always on a horse. He was a very handsome man.
Yes.
My cousin in Tel Aviv, always said, she said to me, well, don't you know that your grandfather in Sigurd, he would pick the hussen, and they had to be good looking, handsome. That is one of the conditions. That's what she's telling me. She's 80 now.
Yes, well, there are plenty of handsome men around.
Well, 9 daughters he had.
He was kept busy. Were you aware of anti-Semitism in your town as a youngster?
No, only we heard. For example, Oiberabsche, there was already Ukrainians. There were anti-Semites.
That was areas to the east of where you lived.
Yes, very much so.
Mm. Was the name Hitler or his rise to power in the 30s familiar to you or your family?
To me, only what I heard the parents talk. But we didn't really read or... first of all, I was 28, so I really... Only from hearing bad times are coming, as children.
Yes.
To hear that already, the atmosphere, that it's no good. And
did your parents have any sense of what was developing?
well, they read, because at that time news came in my place. Still imagine, there used to come one man read out the news in the center of the village.
Yes.
And people used to come to hear what's happening.
Yes.
Not radios, there were no radios.
No.
No.
Do you remember what was read?
I really, if to be exact, I only have in my memory that bad times are upon us. Bad times are coming.
What, for Jews or for the
For
world?
Jews.
For Jews.
For Jews. And I mean, of course I knew the war in China, we heard about, we knew.
Mm.
But really not involved much in this
No.
till the 40s.
Did your parents, as you remember it, see any connection between the condition of the Jewish life in Germany, for example, or even in Poland, with what was happening in your own environment? Did they see it as something which would progress to your own situation?
Wait a minute, I remember now from the other part, as I said, that they were quite bad, those Oiberabsche. A few families were taken away. I think that was towards the end of 1939, and they came back. Some came back, some survived, and that was, they took them to Poland, to the forest, and they killed them off, and he used to tell horrible stories. So we knew it's no good. But I just remember now really a family that who came back and told horror stories, and that was started in perhaps was it 1940, or just as the Hungarians came in and sent out families, but not from my place.
Mm.
But we were all scared. It was already a fear.
So
it was 1940.
there was tension already?
Yes. I mean, then the Hungarians came in. We knew it's bad. It was terrible in 1939. But earlier than 1939, I do not remember many things.
Not many incidents?
No.
And
I know that, as I said, my parents, because my father wanted very much to emigrate to Argentine. Very much, and my mother didn't want to.
yes, why? Because he felt that there were bad times?
Yes, and they wanted to send us from there. Whom we had there, I don't know. Cousin, uncle, who was there, who was warning us and wanted to send us the papers.
Yes. What prevented you from going?
Really? But I know that, again, as a young person, I remember only the discussions between mom and dad that she did not agree, she did not want to go. And and then they just gave up.
Mm.
But the suggestion was from father that we should emigrate.
We come now to the outbreak of the war, and do you recall the day that the war commenced, when Poland was invaded by the Germans in September 39?
Yes, but again, not really so involved.
No. Because a number of these early questions to do with the outbreak of the war are to do with the initial invasion of Poland by the Nazis, which of course you would not know about because you didn't live in that area, you didn't live in that country. So,
sometimes I'm very sorry that I wasn't a bit older.
Yes.
But really, many times I think, gosh, I would have remembered, I would have felt differently. And on the other hand, perhaps because I was so young, I survived.
Yes, but you will
because
have.
I had such a belief. I have to go back. I have to come back. I have to, you know.
You have to bear witness.
Yes, and how proud they'll be now, because I always thought, even I knew that my mother was not alive. Later on, as I knew, but always I felt they would be so proud of me that this hardship I went through and that hardship I lived through. So I think that the childish naivety kept me, after all.
Yes, hopeful,
Yes,
optimistic.
Yeah, very.
Well, I want to establish now what happened when the war came into your life.
Yes.
That's what we want to get to. So, how did it happen, and when did it happen?
In 1940, towards the end of 1943, my parents...
We're already going up to 43. What happened between 39 and...
See, I went, as I said, one brother lived, he was underground. One brother was, I thought you meant, what happened to me, how I survived.
No,
okay.
No, we want to do this stepwise.
Okay, yes. One brother was the Israel, the oldest. He went to Czechoslovakia because they thought there it'll be easier. See, our part was occupied by the Hungarians, and he left to Czechoslovakia, and he lived Eperjes. It's next to Bratislava, not far from Bratislava, and he was supposed to go to the yeshiva from home. We knew that he's going to the yeshiva, but he was working. He worked in different places. He worked in a shoe shop, because I used to get beautiful shoes. So he was in Czechoslovakia, and otherwise we lived in fear at home, and it wasn't a normal life as it was before. It wasn't normal because, okay, I started school, and my older brothers, the two brothers, already stopped school because they didn't go. You see, Israel went to the yeshiva. Mandy still went to Sigurd before me. Also, that the parents wanted him to study, but also didn't. He just worked. And Yossi, he was at home. He was working with father. He worked with my father. And in 1941, I went also to Sigurd, as I told you before, to learn a trade.
Did the Germans occupy your country?
No, the Hungarians, with the blessing of the Germans. They got this from the Germans, that they'll take care. And did they take care? You can trust them. The Hungarians were terrible.
They administered this area?
Yes.
All right. What did they do? Was a ghetto established in your town?
Yes, but that was later. That was in Slatina. Slatina is, again, 5 kilometers from home.
All right. So when was the
there they organized the from all these little places, the ghetto.
A central ghetto.
Yes.
When was that?
I don't know, 43.
So,
But I can't tell in between the 3 years.
yes,
They're abnormal, but to pinpoint what was abnormal was that the Jews couldn't do it, what they wanted to do anymore. It was hard. Life wasn't normal, but we were home and we lived as much as possible a normal life. But it wasn't a normal life.
no,
But at the same time, it wasn't like in many other places that we heard
there were not.
that they're
there-
collecting Jews from here and they're
Yes.
taking Jews from there. We heard that, but it was quiet in Hungary. In Hungary they didn't do that yet,
No,
because they were very well behaved towards the Germans. As I said, they had the blessing from the Germans to get this part of Czechoslovakia, and they looked after it very well. By whatever the Germans asked, they were ready to do.
yes, but your turn was coming.
But we felt it's coming. In Yiddish is such a good saying. Wenn man schert, the Schuf zittern the Lämmer. Mashu
Yes.
kazeh.
Yeah.
Something like that. You know,
Yes.
the little ones are shaking when they
Yes.
see that the others are shaven.
Yes.
That's how we lived that period.
All right. Well, we'll move on to 1943 when the ghetto was established. And we'd like your description of what happened.
Well, that part is very, well, my parents wanted to save their children, so the little ones, of course, stayed at home with them, but us, they organized. Now, as I said, Israel was out, he was in Czechoslovakia. My other brother was in hiding, already in, I would say 1941, 42, my parents sent him to Budapest. He lived with Aryan papers, non-Aryan papers.
Yes.
He was a very tall, blonde and blue eyes, and he was in Budapest. Yossi, my brother, and myself, they organized, there were bunkers built far in the forest, and the non-Jews built it and looked after it for money you could get in. So they could get us in, my brother and myself. My brother was in one bunker and I was in another bunker because they thought this is safer. If one will be caught, the other
Will survive.
survive. And I really was pretty young at the time, 14, and I was by myself, and I didn't like it. I mean, I wasn't by myself because there were their families, whole families, and many, and not whole families, not little children, because they were not supposed to cry. They were all, or they didn't have children. We were about 20 in the bunker. At night we could get out, and the whole day, of course, we were in the bunker, and I was there for a month. But already then I was had a head of a stone brick, and I ran away one night by myself, just went off, and I went days and nights, and I didn't know what will happen. Anyway, I reached some houses, and they took me in. Luckily, I went the right direction, because I could have gone the other direction, but I went towards home. And they used to take me in when I said who I am, the non-Jews, go in and feed me, and next morning I had to leave.
You identified yourself as being Jewish, or they just knew?
I did say, I said who I am. I didn't have papers, I didn't think to lie, I said my name. I wanted to go home to my parents. I didn't know that they were taken to the ghetto. You see, we were sent off before they were taken to the ghetto.
Yes, but you only spent 1 month in the bunker.
Yes,
In
but
that
in the
time-
meantime,
in
they
that-
took already the parents to the ghetto.
Which ghetto?
Slatina. Slatina is just a bridge is dividing, the Tisa is dividing between Sighet and in Romania. Sighet was belonged before, when we were Czechoslovakia, that was Romania. And later the Hungarians got it from the Germans, you know.
So did you find your way home from that month in the bunker?
So then they helped me. The non-Jews, they fed me and saw me off, showed me the way how to get home.
Were your
They probably didn't know either that my parents are not home anymore.
what did
Because
you?
that was, it says I told you that my father's profession was such that he used to ride to the villages, to the mountains, to the places where to the farmers. So they knew my father. So they took me in. But they didn't probably know even what's happening down in the village.
Why did they only keep you overnight? Were they scared of keeping you?
Oh,
Because
yes,
there were penalties.
they
there
knew
were-
that, of course, big
It
penalties.
was dangerous
I mean,
for them.
It was dangerous for them, and they only sent me and showed me and guided me how to get home.
Did they tell you, or did they know themselves of what was happening to Jews?
Yes,
At this stage, did you
Yes.
know what was happening?
yes. We didn't know about Auschwitz, we didn't know the real things, but we knew